Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin bull market top indicators, how to time the top, part two. And we're going to be going over some completely different metrics in this video. It's not going to be the same as last one, so let's get it. The first thing that I want to pull up is the new bull chart, or what's known as the net unrealized profit loss. So basically, we don't really need to pull up the chart of Bitcoin. As you can see here, the Bitcoin chart itself is overlaid on this metric. So basically, what we're looking at is we want to identify where the tops are. As you guys can see, you have all your major tops here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 major tops on this chart. Now, what do you notice when you look at this chart? Well, you see down here is the capitulation zone. You have hope and fear, optimism and anxiety, belief and denial, and euphoria and greed. Generally speaking, the top for Bitcoin, according to this metric, is usually in when the price action of Bitcoin, or I should say when the Nupal chart is somewhere in between belief and denial and euphoria and greed. Basically, what this means is when you see this blue line here, when it's all the way down in capitulation, that means that the vast majority of people that hold Bitcoin are at an unrealized loss. Okay. And when you see it up here in these areas, that means the vast majority of people that hold Bitcoin are at an unrealized profit. So, like on this number right here, 86% of people would have been in the money. This number, 85% of people would have been in the money. On this peak here, 75% of people would have been in the money. And on this May peak, about 75% of people would have been in the money. Now, as you guys can see, based on if we zoom in here, based on the latest price action, you guys can see that it is actually kept up to date. So that's good. So we're able to see what it looks like right now. Currently, only 31% of people are in the money, which means that the other 70% of people that hold Bitcoin are at a loss. That should tell you a lot about retail traders, and basically that probably most of these people, 70% of these people probably got in at like 40 to 70,000. So, they had that dumb money mindset where they were basically aping in right at the top, and then the whales dumped on them, and then, they've been sitting on a loss ever since. So on this first peak here, you guys can see that basically 85% of people were in the money. The second peak here, 80% of people were in the money. Third peak, 81% of people were in the money. This was actually a really nice bull run. I definitely would like to see something like this on the next bull run, where we just go up for basically like about 2 to 3 years straight instead of this craziness right here. I mean, this was a good bull run, but if we could have it like really drag out quite a bit longer, that would be better. So, we're able to capitalize on that opportunity for a longer period of time. So this peak here was about 76%. You got this little micro peak, but we're not really going to count this. But regardless, 60% of people would have been in the money. And then so this peak right here, 75% of people were in the money. And then this peak, about 65% of people were in the money. So pretty much when this thing's between 70 to 80, or belief to denial up to euphoria and greed, that's usually a pretty strong indication that the top for Bitcoin is in. So the next chart we want to look at, again, Bitcoin's overlaid on this chart, is the MVRV score. As you guys can see, when I move all the way over to the right here, it is still updated on a frequent basis. Basically, this red zone up here is the ideal top for Bitcoin, and the green zone is kind of when you want to bottom, but we're not talking about, when the macro bottom is in on this video. So pretty much, so you get a score of 8 here on this peak. This peak didn't really tell us much. It was about a 4. This peak right here, if I can actually get it to show, I might have to, I guess I can't zoom in, but basically this was like around a 7 right here on this peak. This peak was crazy. As you guys can see, this thing really topped out. It was like at a perfect 10 or something in the sell zone on the MVRV score. This peak was an 8.8. This peak over here in 2017 was basically about a 9. And this May peak here was, I would say, probably about a 7. And the November peak, which a lot of people probably got out during the May peak, they didn't think there was going to be a second peak, but we actually did. Reason being is because Bitcoin spent a long time consolidating at 30K, and once we saw a golden cross on the weekly, we said, okay, this thing is probably likely going to go higher, and then we got in for the last couple of months of the bull run. So this peak doesn't really tell us much. So basically what you want to look for in the MVRV score is a score of anywhere between 7 to 10. And as you guys can see, based on the peaks of the MVRV, they're pretty accurate. I mean, when you get a topping out of this thing, that's pretty much, as you guys can see on the overlay, almost the exact top for each of these peaks. So the next chart we'll look at is the Bitcoin rainbow chart. So you got all the different, basically, what each one of these little rainbow bars here mean. So the very bottom would be like your cheapest prices to buy Bitcoin, and the top would be like, maximum FOMO territory, get out, sell everything kind of thing, right? Because everybody's aping in, the price is going bonkers, everybody thinks they're a genius. You got celebrities talking about crypto, that's usually the time to get out. So as you guys can see here, it's worked pretty well over time. We've hit that maximum bubble territory multiple times over the years, and it has led to basically the top in the markets. As you guys can see on the very right of the price action, this thing is actually still kept up to date. I'm guessing this is probably updated on a weekly basis. That's what it looks like, not daily. So the exception here would be basically the last two major peaks in crypto. But these are still pretty good indications. You basically have this thing stuck right around the seriously sell zone, which is pretty close to the top. I mean, when you see it kind of the top of this thing kind of chopping sideways, if we go back here and look at the chart, you'll see what I mean. Like all these candles here just kind of getting rejected off of this $60,000 level. That's a pretty good indication that a top is in. That's what's known as basically a Wyckoff distribution, or a cluster of sellers up here. Basically, this is a major resistance zone. Or, well, I guess in simplistic terms, we'll just call it a distribution phase. So, you see it kind of rolling over here. There's like a rolling top where you get this wick, higher wick, highest wick, and then you get a lower wick, and then boom, it drops back down. That's kind of what's known as distribution. So that's basically how you would time the top on this. And it's been a pretty strong, pretty near perfect indicator, I would say. So the next metric we're going to look at is the Google Trends. And this is for Bitcoin. We move the time frame to 5 years because, again, crypto and Bitcoin cycles are based on 4-year cycles. So as you guys can see here, and we'll go back and look at these on the charts. So this is June 23rd to June 29. We have a 42 on the Bitcoin. So you're basically looking at like June, which is right here. This is about that 13,000 peak. That was a pretty good indication to get out. But it wouldn't have really told you much, because if you're looking for an exact top, that would have been basically like a short-term top, but not a long-term top. You want to see the Google Trends on Bitcoin hit somewhere between, I would say, 75 to 100, probably as close to 100 as possible. So you guys can see here, January, basically in January, we had 100. In February, we had 80. And then again, in May, we had 100. So we'll take a look at that. So January, turns out January had a peak. Bitcoin had a nice big fat pullback, about 30%. That would have been a good time to take some profit and maybe get back in, after a substantial drop. And then February was another major peak. And then you guys can see that May was another major peak for the Bitcoin Google Trends. So that is actually pretty accurate. If I can actually get this thing to work. So June 12, 18, we had a 77. So that was a pretty strong indicator. Although November was actually the true top, Bitcoin's not really going to tell you much here, because, again, I think most people thought the first peak was actually the true peak, but it wasn't. So June, we'll take a look at June. Yeah, you can see that June wasn't, well, okay, hold on a sec. So this was Yeah, okay. So, yeah, June 2022. So this isn't really going to tell you much in terms of a top. So this last peak was basically um, pretty much right at bear market lowest capitulation. But basically, you want to see pretty much this thing get as high as humanly possible. I'd say probably 80 to 100 would be a good indication to get out. Not financial advice. So crypto is another metric that we can use. We'll take a look at the highest highs here. So you get April and May being the highest highs. Now, something that we have not looked at previously that we're going to look at is the total 3 chart, which is basically, or not total 3, my bad. The total 1 chart, which is all of the cryptocurrencies in the market combined. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins. The reason why we're doing this is because this is based on crypto, not Bitcoin. So, sorry guys, I'm having a really hard time trying to get this thing to work. So April and May of 2021. As you guys can see here, here's the peaks in April and May of 2021. That was a pretty strong indication to get out. And again, we had another major peak here in November of 2021. So this one in November did actually give you a stronger indication that the top was in. And as you guys can see, the difference between the two peaks is about 500 billion. So it's a lot of money. And yeah, that was actually the true peak. Now, if we go back to the Bitcoin chart and try to compare the crypto trends with Bitcoin. So you got April, May, and November. You guys can see that that was actually a pretty good indication that the top was in on Bitcoin as well. Now, the last indicator that we want to take a look at here, we're actually going to have to look at this on the chart itself, is known as the Pi Cycle Bitcoin top indicator. So basically, not sure exactly what this indicator is. It's mathematically programmed somehow, but it more or less is designed to point out pretty close to the exact top of the crypto market cycles. So we're going to have to really zoom in here to see these. But if we're going back to 2013 here, you can see that the Pi cycle top indicator did predict almost the exact top. Again, you got pretty close here on the 2013 November peak, December peak. That was pretty much right in that topping area there. If we go to the 2017 bull market top, you can see it timed the top perfectly to the exact candle. And it did time the top on the 2021 first bull market that we had, but it didn't show anything on the second one. So again, for the second one, you could use kind of like the double topping pattern, or basically the rising wedge pattern that we showed you guys before. You see this rising wedge. So that in combination with the Pi cycle top, or you could have used the monthly time frame and basically said, okay, once it breaks this uptrending support line here, boom, you get a candle close below that. That's it. Bull market over. And basically just use that in combination with the Pi cycle top indicator on the weekly time frame. And that would give you more or less a more accurate top of crypto and Bitcoin near the top of the cycle. So anyways, this is part 2 of the Bitcoin bull market top indicators. Hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see y'all later. Peace.